Hello, BookTube. It's Tuesday, a torrid, hot Tuesday here in Boston, as you can see from my heat-exhausted, sleepy little bean. It's bright and sunny and hot today. And Tuesday is the day for tags on BookTube. I have not been tagged in anything for a long time, but there are a couple of tags that caught my interest. I want to do one of them today, and you're going to be surprised because it's the GarbAugust Trashy tag. And you'll think, well, you already did that. And it's true, I did. And in that tag, I tagged Heather Gregg, who finally has a BookTube channel. And I urge you all to go and see her channel and subscribe to it to heave her over 100 subscribers. And you did. I'm very grateful for that. There's some magic in that 3 digits. And in my video, I mentioned that she's not all that trashy. I was sort of trying to get her to lower herself to the level of GarbAugust, the great garbage-related BookTube event that is now ongoing. And she answered the GarbAugust trash book tag in a very Star Trek manner. She made a Kobayashi Maru version of the trashy book tag. And that is a reference to Star Trek, that is a reference to the no-win scenario. The famous no-win scenario simulation that cadets are given at Starfleet Academy that is designed to test how they deal with defeat and death and failure. And we are told that Jim Kirk is the only cadet who ever beat the no-win scenario. And how did he do it? He reprogrammed the simulator so it was possible to save the scenario. And when his son says he cheated, Kirk is a little affronted and says, I changed the conditions of the test. Got accommodation for original thinking. That's what this is. Heather Gregg has reprogrammed the simulator to create a Kobayashi Maru version of the GarbAugust book trash tag. And I could not let that go. I, of course, had to deal with that. So we're going to go through her version as well. It's fascinating. And there's only one question that I don't have an answer for, but it's all the way at the end. You won't be watching by then anyway. Number 1 is a shockingly poor book cover design. One that is good art but inappropriate to the book, or the other is just kitsch, poorly executed. I have a standard example of this. It's the one that I go to all the time. It is a good piece of cover art, but it is completely inappropriate to the book. And it's this. It's The Lion in Winter. That is the cover to the latest single printing of the play The Lion in Winter by James Goldman. And nothing, even extrapolable from anything in the play, is represented on that cover. Nothing at all. There are no young lovers in the play. The only young lovers who are even remotely associated with the action of the play were 2 men. There's nothing like that at all. It's a good cover, but it definitely WTF in terms of its design. Then question number 2 is a book of witty insults, trash talk. Here I picked Joseph Dean's book, Hatred, Ridicule, or Contempt. I have a Penguin mass market of it somewhere. I don't think it's been reprinted in 50 or 60 years. It's a collection of really, really engagingly told libel lawsuits in the British court that go right down to quoting the witty extemporaneous banter in the courtroom, and just do so wonderfully, just wonderfully. I never tire. I was going to say I never tire of reading my copy, but I have had to retire reading my copy because it'll blow apart to dust if I read it one more time. I really need to find another copy. Then question number 3 is trash writing from the other side of the desk, from the publisher's view. And here, Heather, bless her, mentions Muriel Sparks' great novel, A Far Cry from Kensington. I have to mention that again. I have to second that recommendation. Not the only time in this tag that I will do that. Heather is incredibly smart and has excellent taste and is soft-spoken, so we're not exactly the same. but when I heard her cry up Muriel Sparks, good Lord. I mean, it was 20 years now since Adam at Memento Mori made a video on BookTube. We don't really know what happened to him. They say that his ghost still haunts the bullet-ridden bordello where his body was found. But he was our foremost champion of Muriel Sparks, and she has had no champion since then, and she deserves one because she is great. Absolutely great. And A Far Cry from Kensington is her book about publishing, and it is Muriel Sparks, who was a vicious writer to begin with, being even more wonderfully vicious than usual. I had to second Heather's mention of that book. You're going to love it. But I also want to mention P.D. James's novel, Original Sin. which is a murder mystery. There is a murder, but the murder happens in the English publishing world, and that is wonderful. P.D. James is really good at that. It's by far my favorite of her books. Then we have question number 4. Genres I like to read, but which are often disregarded. And here, you're going to know already, if you watch this channel, the first thing that came to mind. My beloved cryptozoology is disregarded and scorned and mocked by pretty much everyone. Cryptozoology being the branch of science devoted to the study of unknown living beings. But the devotees of cryptozoology do exist, are extant. So famous examples of cryptozoology would be the Loch Ness Monster. Just made the news the other day because an incredibly bad Photoshop, an obvious fraud, was floated, no pun intended again, as to revive interest in Nessie. But there is a creature that lives in Loch Ness. It's just about as obviously fake as the famous black and white photo from 100 years ago. Or, most famously of all, Bigfoot. Which is the idea that there is a large hominin living still on Earth that is not human. Is not Homo sapiens sapiens, but is some other branch of the extended hominin family tree that retreated into the most remote and inaccessible parts of the world when Homo sapiens started to dominate the planet, but that does still exist and reproduce. Bigfoot, Sasquatch, Yeti, the Alma. There are people who devote their lives to collecting hair and scat and footprints and audio and call themselves cryptozoologists because they study an animal that no one has ever dissected. I was about to say no one has ever filmed. There's 2 hours of Bigfoot footage if you wanted to watch it. The problem is none of it's convincing. Not a single frame of it is convincing because maybe the Gimlin-Patterson film from 100 years ago, maybe, you might say, maybe, something there, until you take a look at the physical topography of the gulch where that famous 8 seconds was filmed. Once you look at the gulch, once you look at the physical terrain, which you'll never see in a Bigfoot-friendly documentary, you realize that it 100% had to be a guy in a monkey suit. It 100% had to be from the physical layout of the land. I won't get into the details. It's a long explanation, but the topography itself, leaving apart anything else, the topography itself completely blows that apart. But all of the later footage, especially the 21st century footage, when everyone has a high-definition camera on them at all times, the number one thing you'll think when you look at the minutes and minutes and minutes and hours of that footage is, why isn't this better? I'm not being demanding here. I'm not saying someone needs to keep a cool head in a mysterious or frightening circumstance. I'm saying this would be better. If there were something to film, this would be better. Once, at least, it would be better. It wouldn't be that you're walking up behind something that's big and hairy but not a bear, and it's sitting there and it's doing something, fiddling around with the side of a tree, and then the minute it starts to move, you stop filming. It wouldn't be that. You would keep filming. You would be there to film. So the lack of convincing film evidence now is the most damning evidence against Bigfoot that exists. Cryptozoologists who are dedicated to Bigfoot will say that it's the foremost proof. But I'm going to say cryptozoology. There is no such thing as a serious book on cryptozoology. They are scorned. And question number 5 is a rambunctious novel set in Ireland. You might be asking, wait a minute, so Heather Gregg is doing a version of the GarbAugust trash tag. Wait, why is she asking for a rambunctious novel set in Ireland? Why is that? What's the connection? Is she perhaps implying that the Irish are trash? You'll notice I'm not immediately saying, no, they're not. That's not my first response. My first response is, well, what about the Welsh? Which I guess doesn't do me any good. Nevertheless, I have an answer. Regardless of why the question is here, I have an answer. And it is Pogue Mahone. The big new novel from Patrick McCabe, which is weird. It is everything that Steve should hate. And I loved it. And the more I think about it, the more I love it. I'm looking forward to rereading it before the year is out. It's a big, fat thing that is weird and phantasmagorical. It's got all kinds of postmodern, even dude bro chicanery going on, but it has a heart of gold. It's funny. First of all, it's a big knock-around thing, and it can be very funny, but it is one of, at its heart, I believe, one of the most knowingly sad books I have ever read. Certainly that I've read in recent memory. I'm clinging to it like a life raft, because I haven't read a whole lot of first-rate fiction in 2022 so far. So I'm going to say Pogue Mahone by Patrick McCabe. If you know that name at all, you might know him from The Butcher Boy. But this stands out. This is like nothing else he's ever written. I really did believe, when I was reading it, I really did believe this is a well-established author who's just decided to swing for the fences and doesn't care what anyone makes of this book or whether or not anyone even understands it. And I always love it when authors do that. Even when the end result is not always good, I always love it when they do that. That, in an ideal world, would be what we want authors, people with storytelling talent, to do in every book. They don't. They play it safe. They reproduce old victories. But Pogue Mahone is the first thing that came to mind for Rambunctious. Then question number 6 is a film recommendation based on a splendid graphic novel. And here, I can't think of anything better than to second what Heather herself says in her video. She mentions Edgar Wright's 2010 movie, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, which was based on a graphic novel by Brian Lee O'Malley. Precious Little Life was the first book in that series. The first book in that series is what they drew, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. And Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, the movie, if you have not seen it, put it on your movie night, make some popcorn, and be prepared to love it. It is fantastic. I did not expect it to crop up in Heather's video, but I was cheering when it did. It is just from first to last a masterful adaptation of a source material adapted from a graphic novel. Just incredible. I don't know which ex-boyfriend will be your favorite. It's a toss-up myself between Chris Evans and Brandon Routh. I'm never really sure which one is which. Chris Evans plays a thug, a lowbrow, horrible, monstrous thug, a Hollywood version of a conceited movie star. And Brandon Routh plays a condescending, egomaniacal vegan. As if there's any other kind. He plays a vegan who's such a vegan that he has superpowers. And who, when he is defeated, is granted Scott Pilgrim in the movie. Michael Cera plays him, and this is one of the only roles he's ever been any good in. And he is never anything but perfect in the course of the movie. And when he defeats Brandon Routh's character, he says, "Once you were vegan, now you will be gone." And Brandon Routh's character says, "Vegan? What is that?" Just delightful. I couldn't come up with a better example. So I'm going to second Heather's call for Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. If you haven't seen that movie, you should see it. You do not need to read the graphic novel. You're going to love it. And then finally, number 7 is the one that I couldn't answer, which is books on worst films. Heather shows a couple of them that I was familiar with because I sold them in my bookstore. I don't think I've ever gone all the way through one of them. And of course, one of the two that she holds up, didn't win any favors from Steve because right there on the cover is a still from the Rex Harrison movie of Dr. Dolittle, which is not a bad movie. And I don't know why it's on that cover, unless Heather mentions at one point inappropriate love songs is a category. And there is a love song sung in that movie where Dr. Dolittle sings a love song to a seal. Sophie, the seal. Her eyes, so bright, so warm, so real. Isn't this a pity? You're a seal. But the movie is great. It's absolutely great. And it proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that Anthony Newley can hold that can hit his notes even when soused off his ass. Talk about a showman. Most people lose the thrust. They lose the plot of a song if they're 3 sheets to the wind when they're filming it, but not him. Not at all. I recommend the Rex Harrison movie, Dr. Dolittle, no matter why it's in that scurrilous volume that Heather holds up. But I don't have any volumes of my own. I'm not really versed enough in the literature of movie analysis to know. I'll go with hers. So I will leave a link to her video since, as far as I know, the Kobayashi Maru version of the GarbAugust tag, she's the only one who did it. She created this, so I'll leave a link to her version. Feel free to do her version of the tag. She reprogrammed the simulator, so it was possible to do a classy version of this tag. She got a commendation for original thinking. So that is the Kobayashi Maru version of the GarbAugust trash tag. And I will wrap this up for now, but I will see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.